What's going on, everyone? I've been wanting to do this video for quite a while, just really discuss my honest assessment of the Dallas Cowboys going forward. Definitely going to be addressing what happened in the 2023 season, and definitely give my honest thoughts on the Joneses comments. Same with a couple of players like D-Law and Micah Parsons. What I think should happen in free agency, my lovely ideal fantasy trade scenario, and honestly what I believe they should get in the draft, going forward, in the hopes of maybe being a bit more successful in the 2024 season, where we can, advance past the wild card, the divisional playoffs, and hopefully, advance in the conference championship, since we haven't done that in almost 30 years. So, diving into this, the Dallas Cowboys 2023 season were 12-5, 8-0 at home, 4-5 on the road. Played so much better at home, and I'll definitely get to that. Dak Prescott, ended up having an MVP season. Struggled a bit early on and really had his worst game against the 49ers. But after that game, completely turned around to an extent, which I wanted to make a video on that, but I never got around to it. But hey, Dak started throwing more touchdowns, showing some confidence in his throws, really showing that he is, him and CeeDee Lamb, they just completely dominated from there on out. And Prescott passed for 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, over 4,500 yards passing. Definitely, was a contender for the MVP. Tony Pollard took him a while to get going because of that ankle injury that he suffered against the 49ers. But he ended up having another 1,000-yard season and scored, I believe, somewhere, I think it was 5 touchdowns, maybe 6, but I could be wrong on that. CeeDee Lamb, arguably his best season. Over 1,700 yards receiving. I believe he had over double-digit touchdowns. Just completely dominant on, the receiving and doing a little end-arounds here and there, but he was a beast. There was no question about it. He really cemented himself as a number one receiver. Cooks had his fair share, did decent at the number 2 spot for sure. Had over 600 yards. Gallup, he was okay. Tolbert, I really thought really showed some improvement, some significant improvement compared to the rookie season. Had over 250 yards receiving. Definitely has some room to grow, but he definitely showed some improvement compared to what happened the season before, where he had like maybe 2 catches at most, maybe 1. But he really showed that he can be probably a very good number 3. Jake Ferguson, definitely surprised me, and he really cemented himself as the number 1 tight end. Had over 700 yards receiving, single-digit touchdowns, I don't remember specifically. But he really showed that he was a beast at that tight end position. Tough, made some good catches, really showed that he is going to be a great tight end for us in the future. Schoonmaker, he was a rookie, but he had his moments here and there, but not a lot. So maybe there's some room for him, even though I have to admit he was overdrafted in the 2nd. I would have gotten him in the 3rd, but that's a whole nother scenario. Our O-line, for the most part, did decent. Tyron Smith played over 10 games, was a little healthier compared to last year. Tyler Smith, very dominant at left guard, probably at his best at guard, and he should definitely stay at guard from here on out. He's probably elite at guard. Okay at tackle, but elite at guard. Biadasz did okay. Nothing too special. I think he could be replaceable. Zach Martin, he had a good season. He had an extension, like at the end of the preseason. Definitely had some ups and downs here and there because, he is getting old. But he was still pretty good for the most part. That's why he's probably arguably one of the best right guards in the NFL. Steele, he got an extension. I'll be very honest, and probably being slightly nicer than I should. He did not have a very good season overall. He was a bit terrible in some games. He had some okay games, but for the most part, he really struggled throughout the season. Maybe he finally improves after being almost a couple years recovered from that ACL injury. anyways, on the defense, Diggs started off great, and then in the third week up into the Arizona game, tore his ACL in practice. That was a big loss for us. But DeRon Bland really stepped up, had, I believe, 9 interceptions total. 5 of them were pick sixes. Really showed that he was, just a ball hawk at cornerback. Gilmore, originally he was going to be playing cornerback number 2. He did decent for the most part. Definitely showed his age, but when it came down to it, he definitely made some plays when it counted for. Got a couple of interceptions, that's about it. But he was pretty much on his guy for the most part until he had that injury in the Washington game, which I believe kind of affected his performance in the Green Bay game, which I'll definitely get to. Michael Parsons, definitely a good player. Had double-digit sacks. He had 14, I believe. Who else? Who else was good on the defense? I think Dorrance Armstrong had a solid season. DeMarcus Lawrence, he had a solid season to an extent. Leighton Vander Esch, I guess, was okay until he had that neck injury in the 49 game. Then he was out. Jaron Kearse definitely regressed. I definitely hope they don't sign him because he was not good for the most part. Marquise Bell, for the most part, did the best he could considering that he was originally a safety and was asked to play linebacker for a good period of time. Pretty much almost all the games he did. He had his moments, but he also had some not so great moments whenever he was asked to make try to stop the run, and times he would miss tackles. Damone Clark, he was kind of up and down. There's room for improvement, Seems like he needs to work on his coverage skills a little more, but that's just me. Malik Hooker did okay, but I felt like he could have done better. Donovan Wilson, for the most part, was disappointing, especially since he signed a 3-year extension. But towards the tail end of December, he really stepped it up, had an interception against the Lions, then had another one against the Washington Commanders. Jordan Lewis, who had to step into the nickel role, and he's done pretty decent in that role before. Struggled a bit as well, but had a pretty good game against the Seahawks, then recorded an interception against the Lions as well. That's pretty much it. The defense showed that they can get turnovers, occasionally make stops, but they still had problems, stopping the run. Now I'm going to talk about the playoff game. Can't underestimate the Packers because they always seem to have our number, especially at home. But to me, at the time, I thought it felt different because we were completely dominant at home, except for the very last game at home against the Detroit Lions. Green Bay comes in very red hot as well. Jordan Love had arguably his best season as well. I believe this was his first time fully starting, had over 30 touchdowns, played MVP-like as well. He was not Aaron Rodgers, but he showed why he was drafted to be the replacement for Rodgers, and he's definitely going to be the Green Bay Packers' future quarterback going forward for sure. So, I'm convinced that we can win this game, but I don't underestimate the Packers because they can score points, but I felt like in comparison to our defense, I felt like we could have at least held them to like 20 or so because the Green Bay Packers defense allowed far more points compared to us. But that game happens. Boy, oh boy, it was a complete shit show. And Green Bay completely dominated, embarrassed, humiliated us, and pretty much mocked us after that game was over. I mean, Aaron Jones had the game of his life. Jordan Love was able to hit on his wide receivers. And when it comes to the defense, throughout most of the season, they were doing pretty good despite losing Diggs, not having actual linebackers on that defense. They got absolutely dominated, shredded, and just flat out outcoached and embarrassed. Let's just say that. I mean, for whatever reason, Dan Quinn, of all people, decided to switched it up to having more zone coverage rather than the man coverage that he had previously. And I have no idea what the fuck you were thinking, man. That was beyond mind-boggling and stupid. Why on earth did you think that was a good idea? And if anything, you really should have gotten some additional linebackers. I know Micah Parsons is a linebacker, but you mainly had him primarily playing defensive end. And he's not a full-time defensive end, and he can get worn out probably a lot quicker. You should have at least put him at strong side linebacker or something like that, because he is a linebacker. And yeah, we got Rashard Evans like in the middle of the season after LVE went down, but you ended up cutting him too. I don't know why you couldn't have just kept him, despite having his run-in with the law. But still, I felt like you were not putting him in a good position. In fact, I remember in that Seattle game, you had him covering a wide receiver, and he got burned. I mean, why do you think a linebacker can cover a wide receiver, Quinn? That is unbelievably stupid. And not only that, speaking of linebackers, you thought the idea to move a safety, a barely 200-pound safety, to linebacker, you thought that was going to work pretty much all season. What the flying fuck were you thinking? Marquise Bell is not a fucking linebacker. He may have been somewhat, built like a linebacker, but he's not a linebacker. He's a safety. What in the world did you really think was the most ideal thing to do? Now, in certain situations, yeah. Certain passing situations, like if he was asked to guard against a tight end on like 3rd and 5, if he breaks up a pass, or intercepts it, then hey, that's one thing. In certain, passing situations, it could work. But not a full-time game where he's asked to shed blocks and make tackles in the run game. Because, sorry, dude, a safety can't do everything. He's not supposed to, take on big guys. In fact, I remember a guard was able to get a hand on Marquise Bell, and I believe Aaron Jones went like 6 or 10 yards on the play. But yeah. And you failed to make any adjustments at all. It's like you still stuck with the zone coverage, and Green Bay's wide receivers were just getting wide open. My goodness, this was arguably the worst game you've ever fucking called, and supposedly you may have intentionally sabotaged it. If that's the case, Quinn, I am so fucking glad that you're gone. You fucking traitor. Especially since you joined the Washington Commanders. Yeah. Your ass should have been fired, really, after that game, but I guess I don't get the front office, and I'll definitely get to that at some point. But I'm fucking glad that you're gone. You and your fucking defense that just cannot stop the run. In fact, the first time you came here, yeah, I'll say this. You improved the defense in terms of turnovers and points, but the run defense was still not very good. I believe we were 16th in 2021. We were somewhere, I think, like 22nd, 23rd in 2022, and then back again to 16th in 2023. I mean, why can you not get, a good scheme to stop the run? It's mind-boggling. And also, yeah, the defensive tackles, I felt like they were not pretty much a non-factor except for maybe Osa, but even then he seems to get, stymied in the run game. Gallimore, didn't really show much, and he's probably gone in this season. Mozzie Smith, I was actually excited for. Might have been a tad overdrafted, but he definitely had some potential measurables. He was over 330 plus pounds, but for whatever reason, as it was later revealed, I guess like towards the tail end of the season, he was asked to lose weight and play, I guess, 3-tech. Why on earth did you think that was a fucking good idea, Quinn? He should have been playing the 1-tech and just focused on, stuffing the run and making it easier for the linebackers, to make a tackle or tackle for loss in the run game. Why on earth did you really think that you were going to try to somehow make Mozzie Smith into a fucking pass rusher? This is the same bullshit that happened with Rod Marinella or Jurassic Marinelli. I know I blanked. I know I kind of messed up his name, but I don't care. Rod Marinelli. Why on earth did you really think that was a good idea to do that? Why? But anyways, glad you're fucking gone, Quinn, because Your defense failed big time. I mean, it was definitely a team loss for sure, but a good majority of the game of the loss was definitely on your defense, Quinn. You forced one punt in that first half, and the Green Bay Packers, I think, scored on pretty much all their drives. I think you forced maybe like 1 or 2 punts in the second half, and that was it. Your defense was done, cooked, and buried. And Micah, he did not play very well at all. I think he had like 1 tackle, and also defense had no turnovers, no sacks whatsoever. Just looking completely lost and confused, and just a former shell of itself compared to what happened in the regular season. It almost seemed like we became Mike Nolan's defense again. And they shredded us in the run game, really shredded us in the passing game too. And if anything, if Gilmore was really that hobbled with that shoulder injury, shouldn't you have had him on a limited snap count and see what you had with Nashawn Wright? Because in that Washington game, Nashawn Wright was asked to cover receivers like Scary Terry McLaughlin, who's a 4-3 guy, Curtis Samuel, who is also a 4-3 guy. We managed to do pretty good against those. I know, granted, it was Washington. I mean, they've actually played us pretty tough for the good first quarter. In fact, they led 10-7 at one point, but then we were able to make it 21-10, end up winning that game 38-10. I thought, the way we won that last game, I thought that was a great, confidence booster that we were able to, stay focused and actually win against, the playoff opponent that we were going to face. But it was nothing like that whatsoever. And McCarthy, what's your fucking excuse? Were they not ready this time like they were against the 49ers in the 2022 playoff game? What's your fucking excuse on that? What kind of offense were you calling? Granted, Dak panicking under pressure certainly didn't help. And Dak, a big problem with you is that for whatever reason, you still can't seem to go beyond your one-read persona, if you will. You can't seem to escape that vision of just, if that guy's covered, you should try to look for another wide receiver that could be wide open. I know and CeeDee Lamb was also wide open on one of those plays, but you still threw it to Cooks, who was being completely mugged by J.R. Alexander, and he still managed to make the interception. I'm sorry, man, Dak. And then you throw in that pick six, which made it 27-0 when all we had to do was maybe make a promising drive, an ensuing drive that could have at least got us a touchdown and cut that deficit, by 13, because it was like 20-0. Dak throwing that pick six made it 27-0. I mean, yeah, we got a touchdown at the very tail end of that, but it seemed like we had to make it difficult, to get that touchdown. And Ferguson, I believe, is the one that scored all 3 of the touchdowns. CD definitely got over 100 yards, but it was already too late because in the second half, I remember it was we kicked a field goal, but the Green Bay Packers scored again. It's 34-16. We tried a 2-point conversion, but got flagged on that. Aubrey missed a field goal. Aubrey, our field goal kicker, I forgot to mention, did pretty good. Had at least over 30 field goals, missed very few, but he missed the extra point. But in that last game, if I recall, he definitely had a bit of the yips in that. But I thought maybe, sometimes field goal kickers aren't perfect, and it happens. But anyway, the whole team just looked completely unfocused and unprepared. And if anything, McCarthy really should have been fired too. But you know how the Joneses are. They love continuity. They're scared to make a change. They just want to have that security. They're too scared to make changes, don't want to make changes. They definitely don't want to admit they make mistakes. And speaking of which, the recent comments by, Jerry's son Steven, or Steve as I like to call him, or Catboy, Catbitch. Oh, I don't think we have a culture problem in Dallas. Oh, I want to give Dak Prescott an extension. Yeah, he is our quarterback. We believe in him. Blah, blah, blah. Shut the fuck up, Steven. You fucking cheapskate prick that you are, money hungry, greedy asshole that you are, really. Always thinking that you're smarter. You're fucking a lot dumber than... Honestly, you're probably even a lot dumber than Jerry, and I would not trust you to run this organization. Oh, and Jerry, what I mean by all in, I don't want to... What was it he said? If I was to, see a talented quarterback fall to us, I'd be hesitant to do that or something like that. Or whatever his words were. Because he supposedly, they were going to be all in. All in on your guys. No attempts at free agency. No outside free agent guys. Instead of just your own guys who I swear you just fucking love so much and want to go down on them. It's mind-boggling how you just don't want to fucking do that. You overpay your own guys when they suddenly have, what seems to be like an elite season. You pay them like they're elite players when they're anything but elite. They're at best maybe good, but a good majority of it, they're just average guys, and yet you pay them like they're the cream of the crop, like they're elite, like Pat Mahomes or who's another good defensive player, Aaron Donald, or I don't know. I can't even think of the players right now. But anyway, how about you actually get a linebacker in free agency that's going to contribute? Like there's that guy from the Texans. I think he can make has starting capability. He doesn't have to break the bank. I mean, get a guy like that who is capable of making tackles, being decent in coverage. That'd be the way to start. And also get another defensive tackle that has the ability to stop the run. And I would make Mozzie, gain some significant weight back and have him just be the one tech. And Hankins, I mean, I guess he had an okay season, but even then, it seemed like, even though he's known as a run plugger, he seemed to struggle a bit as well. So I think it's time to move on from him. I think Mozzie should at least be given another chance under Zimmer. And speaking of which, our replacement for Dan Quinn is Mike Zimmer. I didn't love or hate it. I'm just kind of indifferent to it because I feel like it's a typical safe Jerry move. Now, supposedly Zimmer does bring some discipline to the defense, and if he's allowed to do that, then hey, I do like the hire to an extent, but I'm not quite excited by it because he is 67, and is he really going to get into the players' faces and demand that if someone is not able to make the tackle or gets pushed back and doesn't maintain their gaps and the efforts to stop the run, because that Zimmer places a good emphasis on that. But even then, is he going to be allowed to even do that with these players? Are the Joneses going to allow him? Or are they just going to try to neuter him or just try to tell him to go easy on the players? I don't know. I know that Zimmer, he was our defensive. He was with us from about 94 to 96. He became our defensive coordinator in 2000 when Dave Campbell took over the head coaching position. And of course, we all know what happened in those 3 years: 5-11, 5-11, 5-11, 3 straight times. His best year was 2003, where the defense was rated number 1. Don't think he was able to quite replicate that success. And I remember back in 2006, whenever the last 3 or 4 games, when the defense just completely collapsed and started allowing so many points, especially in that very last game against Detroit, where supposedly I think he was going back to more of the 4-3, but by then it was too little too late. And Detroit embarrassed us and beat us 39-31 in that game. I remember there were so many people, wanting to run Zimmer out of town, thinking it was definitely his fault that he lost it. But then he was able to do better in Cincinnati. I think he went to I can't remember if he went to the Falcons. Then it was Cincinnati. Then eventually he became the head coach for the Vikings, where he managed to run some pretty decent defenses during his tenure there. But the last season didn't go as well. So it's a question of whether or not Zimmer can really, maintain a good defense, that's championship caliber, whether it be improving the run defense in terms of talent. So it's really going to be kind of a question mark going forward. I'm not going to say it's the worst or best thing, but I guess you'll have to see, this upcoming season. So, and what I think should happen in free agency, like I said, sign an actual linebacker, get maybe a defensive tackle. As far as, our own guys, Gilmore, I'm not so sure about. I mean, he did decent, I'd say, for the most part. He was asked to step into the cornerback one role whenever Diggs went down. So he did okay in that extent. But I don't know if I want to bring him back because he'll be, 34, and it might be time to move on. Tyron Smith, I'm not so sure about. Had a decent season, but the problem is he has nagging injuries, so I don't know if I would bring him back. Vet minimum at best, maybe. But I would still, try to look for a tackle in the draft. But Pollard, I'm not so sure about. I know they said they're not going to franchise tag him, but who knows? I would still look for a running back in the draft as well. Gallup, honestly, I would move on from. I know that apparently the Cowboys met with his agent. They met with Tyler Biadasz. I think he could be replaceable. Find a guy in the draft or maybe someone in free agency. But yeah, we need to make moves, or at least make a few moves that are going to be, successfully contributed, this upcoming season. But my little proposed trade fantasy, here's what I would do. Since D-Law mentioned about how tired they were in that playoff game, I just want to say, kiss my ass and fuck you, DeMarcus Lawrence. You're a bit overrated. You may be good in stopping the run, but you really didn't show up in that playoff game at all. And you really don't show much in terms of pass rush unless if it's like a bad tackle. D-Law, we were tired. Oh, were you tired at all during the regular season or the seasons before that? You are so fucking overrated, it's mind-boggling. You have not had a double-digit sack since 2018, ever since you got paid. I would trade your ass, and sadly, believe it or not, I would trade Zach Martin for the San Diego Chargers, first-round pick, maybe a couple of third and fourth, and then also trade for Rashawn Slater. Make Rashawn Slater your new left tackle. Move Terrence Steele to left guard. I think he could be salvaged at guard because I don't know if that. I think that injury may have affected his agility a little, but I think if you put him at guard, I think Steele will excel in that position. Then you move Tyler Smith to right guard, where I think he can. He's still at guard, but he can still play at almost an elite level at that position. For the center, my idea was to maybe franchise Tyler Biadasz and swap our second and third round picks and trade him for Frank Ragnow. That's what I had. That's what I thought in mind. That way, we get a really good veteran center. I know that's a little far fetched, but I'm thinking about retooling that offensive line. And the draft pick can be a new right tackle and a center. Frank Ragnow can mentor that young guy. When Frank Ragnow leaves, our new center will be far more polished and established, and he takes over. And then we also have a new right tackle. I'd still sign another veteran tackle, for depth. And then, as far as defense is concerned, like I said, sign a linebacker in free agency. But hell, even draft one in the draft. There are potentially some good linebackers. There's this Peyton guy who does maybe have a slightly injury history, but hey, if you can get him in the late second or early third, I would do it. And then draft this other guy, I think his name is Junior something. Get some linebackers that know how to tackle, diagnose plays, and excel well in coverage, and also that doesn't have an injury history like Sean Lee. He was a very talented linebacker, but had an injury history. That's what I would do. And also for corner, if you had to resign Gilmore, I would do it for very low veteran minimum because he's getting old. If he's willing to accept, very low pay, fine. But I think we should have another, a 4-3 guy or a low 4-4 guy to play alongside Diggs, and I would have Bland stay in the slot because he excels well in that position. To an extent, Bland did good for the most part, but I saw when he faced DK Metcalf in that Seattle game, DK Metcalf burned him really bad, and he pretty much had his worst game against Seattle, where Bland was really struggling in that game. So yeah, Bland in the slot, a good rookie. Although my idea was maybe you can trade we can trade a third or fourth round pick for Eric Stokes, the Green Bay Packers cornerback. He ran like a 4-2, 4-2, 4-3. We definitely need something like that. And hopefully Diggs can get back to form. But I have a feeling he's going to struggle for a bit whenever he comes back in the upcoming 2024 season. And then Damarian Overshawn, I know he showed some potential, but that was preseason. And then, of course, he had an injury. It all depends on how well he's going to come back and how well he's going to, be able to tackle and diagnose plays. Maybe Mazi Smith can be salvaged because he was asked to play something completely different. Hopefully Zimmer, can recognize his potential and maybe he can stay at the one tech. But also draft another, potential run plugger. There is that Sweat guy from, UT, Texas. He could definitely be useful. So yeah, I wouldn't mind him. But I also think we should get another wide receiver along Lamb, a 4-2, 4-3 guy. I feel like if we have Lamb, we have our new draft pick, that can, that has the speed to burn defenses. They'll have to worry about Lamb, but they also have to worry about our very fast guy. That'd be great to have him. And plus, Brandon Cooks did decent in the number 2 role. Him being a number 3, I think he'd be very good. Number 2, he can be okay, but if he was the number 1, forget it. He's not that same guy he was back in 2014. So, yeah. I draft another wide receiver that has some deep threat speed to him. So, yeah, I would do that. And that's all I can really say. That's all I can say going forward. But to be honest, with the way the Joneses are running this organization, I don't fully trust that they can because they clearly have no idea what the fuck they're doing. And let's be honest, the Joneses think that us fans, a majority of us, are stupid. They think that we'll buy whatever kind of car salesman pitch that Jerry and Steven is trying to fucking put out there because you can't believe anything they fucking say. They always really overvalue their players. They clearly don't care about anything else but themselves, and they really hate to admit that they made mistakes. They don't care. They just basically want whatever sells the jerseys and all that good stuff. They don't care about, really improving the player personnel like they should. The whole culture, and Steven saying, "Oh, there ain't no culture problem down there," which is a bunch of fucking bullshit. They think that we'll buy what they're trying to sell, and we as fans should not buy what they're trying to sell. We as fans, as Cowboy fans, deserve better. Deserve so much more than what they're putting out in the field. We deserve to see elite play. We deserve to see consistently good play, not inconsistent. We should be able to see Dallas beat good teams regardless. And they did to an extent. That's why I believe that, the way Dak played against the Rams, since the Rams ended up being decent, he also beat the Eagles. Probably that was his best game there. Should have beaten the Eagles the first time, but that didn't happen. But still, we need a quarterback that can at least be, that can see the field so much better. And that's why, with one of our draft picks, if we had more than one first-round pick, I would try to draft a quarterback that can be groomed for the future. Maybe Trey Lance can be that guy, but we don't know for sure. We don't know if Trey Lance is capable of carrying that team. especially with all this talent that he has around him. And if he is, then great. If he's able to be a good backup as well, that's great. Speaking of Cooper Rush, I think he should be traded as well. And that's just my opinion. But yeah, this culture for the most part is just plain soft. I mean, the Joneses feel like they're not the problem, which they are, because they basically enable this behavior, this entitlement behavior. And Micah, if anything, the fact that you have a podcast, it seems like you're more focused on doing that than rather than playing football. You even had fucking Jordan Love of all people on your podcast, explaining to you how they beat you. Dude, I think you should be in the fucking film room studying your ass off, learning to improve yourself as a player, and learning how to maybe shed blocks, or maybe improving your pass coverage skills, which I think you potentially could still have, but sadly, for whatever reason, Dan Quinn, the idiot that he is, chose to just make you just a pass rushing linebacker and not, a complete linebacker that can diagnose plays or make breakups in pass coverage. That's what should have fucking happened, but that didn't. And honestly, the Will McClay, I feel like he's a tad overrated. This is the same guy that thought that Taco Charlton, of all people, was better than TJ Watt, and TJ Watt is still playing in the fucking league. And Taco, is he even in the league anymore? Because he was cut by us, went to the Dolphins for a bit, went to the Chiefs. I don't know what happened to him after that, so he was a disappointment. But yeah, I apologize if I seem like I'm a little off, but I'm just trying to really recount my honest thoughts going forward. But I will give my honest assessment overall. If we don't make any changes whatsoever this upcoming season, if I see us doing the same shit again and again, which it looks like it will, because the Joneses don't take their all-in approach seriously, we're not going to go anywhere with those fucking idiots, the fucking clown show running things. We're not going to go anywhere with them. But if they actually make some changes that are going to be beneficial to the team, like actually getting a few players in free agency and actually getting some elite talent in the draft, then I can say, yeah, I like our chances. But the way the Joneses run things, this entitled culture where you just come into Dallas and hey, if you have this elite season, we'll overpay a shitload of money for you, and you are just going to be the premier star, blah blah blah. And it's going to get into the players' heads that they're thinking that they're the best, and they clearly are not. So let's just be honest on that assessment. But yeah, what do I know? I'm just a fan, so. And what about my little dream trade scenario? I'm just a fan myself. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And then Dak Prescott, what to do about his contract? I forgot about that. I would not extend the guy. If you have to restructure Dak's contract, you should at least do it by like a couple years, where you split the money for like maybe $27 million for this year and $27 the next, or something like that. But if Dak fails to do anything good this year, if he actually starts regressing, throwing more interceptions than touchdowns, you just yank him out and tell him, you know what, Dak, you're not the guy going forward. We're going to either have our new draft pick or Trey Lance, show us what he can do. Because I'm sorry, Dak, I have no faith in you going forward. You also take very many unnecessary sacks than you have to. So, why don't you just throw the fucking ball away? You live to play another down. You can't take sacks for losses. In fact, you were sacked 4 times in that playoff game. 4 times. That's inexcusable. Get rid of the ball. It's not that hard to do. Stop fucking locking it into your guy. But I have a feeling after 8 seasons, you're not going to change. You're not going to want to have that desire to improve. You're not going to improve your field recognition skills whatsoever. So yeah. As long as the fucking clown show is running things, I don't trust a fucking word they say, and I don't have any faith in the Cowboys really just alleviating themselves to the next level like they should. I just don't. So, all right. I know this video was pretty fucking long, and I apologize for that, but I just really wanted to dive into my honest assessment going forward. So that's my honest opinion. Unless if we truly make any changes whatsoever, we're not going to do well at all. And the Jones are just content and making the playoffs and not doing much of anything in them. So, yeah. It is what it is. At my heart, I am a Cowboy fan, but I honestly don't know if I'm going to even make a whole lot of Cowboy videos or even watch the games because I'm just that fucking tired of all the bullshit that I keep seeing. Lacking any heart or desire to really just win and win at a convincing level and show that when you're 8-0 at home, you represent the home team. You don't go coming into the playoff game looking like complete dog shit from the very get-go and looking just uninspired and just lacking in focus, and you're just there to collect a paycheck. That's not the football team that I want to see out there. So, anyways, I feel like I'm losing my voice. I'm going to go ahead and end it right there. Let me know in the comments what you honestly think about the Cowboys the Cowboys going forward, and chime away. So, see you later. Bye-bye.